All right, so in the next few videos, we are going to be working from the W3 Schools website. We're going to go to the Learn How To section, and then we're going to go down to the website 2016 here. So it's how to build a website in 2016. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking this down into its core parts, because as you start to lay out your web pages from now on, you're going to come up with your draft, you're going to come up with your sketch, and we're going to break it down. You're going to be thinking about the overall design itself, what kind of navigation you're going to have, what is the content that you actually are going to be displaying, what information do you have to work with? Are there pictures? Is there a write-up? Is there a need for maps? Is there a need for forms? Is there tables? And whatever all that content is, you've got to figure out how you're going to display it, how you're going to lay it out with your CSS framework so that it's responsive and that it looks nice, and that it may be it may need to be changed for different devices. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to experiment with all of the different elements, breaking it down, and then you're going to do a version of your own content, taking these ideas and basically changing things up a little bit and putting in your own stuff, but still kind of keeping and modifying the core. All right, so we're going to begin by thinking about every time you build or think of designing a website, you've got to start with something. Usually it's a sketch of some sort. So I'm going to scale this down a little bit. So you want to be thinking about, okay, overall I'm going to have my navigation. It's going to be at the top. Now, is that going to float and be there? Is it going to move up with the page and disappear? So you got questions like that. You're going to have some sort of slideshow in this particular spot. You might have a description of some element. This is in the center. So you're going to have articles that are going to contain information. In this particular case, there's three articles. And then you've got a footer here. You can also think about the colors that you're going to be using. This is just a very neutral black, white, and gray kind of color palette, but you could start to lay out your core colors as well. We're going to look at the basics here. So we're going to look at, we have what we always do. Start out with your doc type. Start out with your meta tags. Start out with your what's called the viewport content. And this is going to be something that defines the value of your device screen, and make sure that it doesn't scale the content in any way. You're also going to want to make sure you link to your style sheets. Now, your style sheets can be the W3 Schools style sheet. You can have other style sheets on here as well. As a matter of fact, you can have the W3 Schools style sheet plus your own style sheet, and that would be fine as well. So when you begin looking at it, obviously you have your very first basic code, just like we would any rough content. Just kind of like how we start things out in our class. We just kind of have the stuff that you want to put in there first, and then build everything off of it. You're going to have your body elements, obviously, and then inside of that you're going to have a navigation bar, your slide bar. That's going to be where your pictures and everything are going to go, your slideshow, I mean. You're going to have a header and sections and articles, which are all HTML5 elements, and then a footer. And so you can use some of these things in HTML or W3 Schools. You can still use your sections, your articles, your headers, your footers, and your navs as your elements within your page. And it's appropriate to do that because first it makes it really easy to see where things begin, because you have a clear section opening tag and a clear section closing tag instead of everything being div, 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 div. And it makes it very easy to understand. So the first thing that they're going to start laying in there is your navigation. And when you begin looking at your navigation, there's a lot of different kinds of navigation that you can work with. The navigation content can be just a simple bar, can be just a simple bar like this, and this utilizes the W3 School bar attribute, a black color, and then your anchors that you just put inside the navigation attribute here. So we're not using an unordered list like they have in the past. So you have this nice bar. If we were to take this out, say we just remove that and run the thing, notice what happens. It changes everything. If this was just simply a navigation element and we ran it, it would look like this. We just have 3 of these links, and the links themselves are buttons, and then they're designated as a bar item. So if we were to suddenly just take some of these things out, you can see that all of this CSS that's being added by these classes are adding elements to our page. If this wasn't a button, it just becomes a link that is actually what's called an anchor, and it's going to be tied into some identification, an ID on some other element. So down here we might have a div with the ID of home, and this link would go down to that, jump straight down the page to it. So you can see that you kind of start out with just ordinary code here. We take all these, if we just take out all of these classes, we just end up with ordinary code. But with this W3, it really takes a lot of the time of styling away. The stuff that would have taken a long time to style, like what we've done in the past, it is immediately styled. It's interactive. It's got that nice hover over it, and it just looks nice, and it saves a lot of time. But there are other types of navigation that you can look up. There are a lot of different types of elements that you can try out. So if you don't want to use a navigation such as this bar, you can also try out different types. So let's look at some of those navigation examples. So I'm going to go to the CSS, and I'm going to look at the W3 CSS, and let me see. And I'm going to look at the navigation sections, if I can find it here. Navigation. So there's a variety of different types of navigations that you can use. There's bar classes, and these are the different elements. But there's basic examples of basic navigation types. There's the responsive navigation where they hover over different elements. So you could experiment with these, and you could add these types of things to your site and change things up. We're just going to stick with the basic ones, but the idea is you could take the code that they've provided, like for instance if I took this code here. Now I'm going to need all of that because I'll need the links. Control copy, and if I put it into a new tab, I have a folder for doing this sort of thing where I do some experiments. And if I just pasted all of that there, if I control save it, and then if I preview it, should give me the unless I miss something, it should bring it up and bring that code in, and it should behave like the example. So here it is. So it's very, very nice to have that, and you can see that it does change when it's responsive. So I can immediately have a very nice navigation right off the bat. So I can choose from a variety of different types of navigation, and in this example, in the code that we're looking at, if we go to the W3 schools, we go to the how-to, and we go down to the 2016. We're looking at the layout, and we're going to look at the navigation. the nav bar. Okay, and so we're going to kind of keep going down the page a little bit, and we can look at this. Now, we're going to look at some other elements because they use some other elements like top for the navigation. So they keep it in a div that sticks to the top of your page. And so we'll look at how that looks in just a little bit. Now they put in a slideshow. Now this is a little more complex. Notice that the images that they are adding are all showing up right here on the page. But we're going to use some code, some JavaScript code that will actually allow it to act more like a slide. And so we're going to look at this basic elements. Again, they have the navigation section sectioned off. Navigation, here's all the code for the navigation. And then we're going to begin building a section, and in that section we're going to have slides, and those slides are going to contain images, so sources for our images. Okay, now those images can be physical images on your folder, in your folder. They could be images on the web, or someone else's images essentially, but ultimately we would want them to be a part of our website, and there'd be our legitimate images. So we've got this navigation. If you notice that when we are looking at this, as you scroll down the page, the navigation disappears. You know, it's still up here at the top. So here, let's look at the navigation bars here in this code here. What we'll do is this one's creating a nice little navigation here. I'm going to get rid of the default navigation bar. I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff here. Well, let me just show it to you this way. This is a little bit super quick and easy. Notice that as you scroll down the page, this is going with the page. Now, what if we could just simply wrap a div around this? And if we say div, I'm going to say, there's the opening tag. I'll go ahead and tab these over a little bit so you can see this a little better. Oops. All right, and let me just tab these over and see if I can just do it in one little bit, and this div over. So nav. Now I'm going to put a closing div right here. All right, and now so this is containing this. So what I want to do is watch. I'm going to add a class equal to w3 top, and I'm going to close that off. If I run this, what this is going to do is this div is going to stay at the top of the page. See how it's staying at the top of the page? So with this simple class, it's holding that nav there. So no matter when you're scrolling down, that is so cool. And so that sort of thing is really, really, really nice. Now, you might wonder what would happen if we added that to something else. Now, I don't know what's going to happen if I added that to something else. If I added that to something else and I ran it, it's going to keep that up at the top of the page. So that's pretty cool. It covered up the other thing. But it's kind of neat. Those are the kinds of experiments I would want you to try out when you're thinking about what you're doing. Thinking, oh, well, I wonder what happens if I was to change this. So we have our div class. We have our, again, we could take this, we could change the colors and make it something completely different. We can change the text. We can change the text color and all of that sort of thing. So you can do so much with it. And let's see what would happen if we added it to that. So the anchor, it turns that one red. So I can turn these individually different colors. So here's a different color. So playing around with these things and seeing what happens.